Welcome to Tnt'S News You Can Use. Thank you for joining us again. Welcome. I am your host, Stacy, and I am with my
host, Tnt'S.
All right. Thanks for joining us for our stage 3 in the home buying process. So today we are going to talk about what happens after you get an accepted offer. So last time we left off on stage 2, property search. Can we talk about, let's do a quick recap about what happens when the client is in property search time.
Absolutely. We made 4 pretty salient points about when you are in the property search. The first thing is it's a partnership between your agent and you.
Right.
What does that mean? We will set you up with a smart plan. That means emails will automatically come to you of properties that are just listed on the market. We want you to check your emails at least how many times a day, Stacy?
At least 3 times a day, guys, in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. Hopefully when you're having your meals, those are good times to remember to check your emails.
And we want you to look at the platforms that are available to you. Realtor, Trulia, Zillow, HomeSnap, etc. There are a lot of listings there. Some of those listings don't come to the MLS that we as realtors use, so we ask you to use those. So partnership is the first thing. The other thing we talked about is sometimes clients want to make an offer on a property sight unseen. We strongly discourage that because pictures sometimes can be deceiving.
They are not always worth 1,000 words, or maybe they are worth 1,000 words and some of those are not good words.
The other thing we talked about, clients often ask is how many properties do they need to see before they make an offer? Our response to that is
make an offer on the property that you desire to live in if that's the property that you find.
So if it's the first one, if it's the second one, make that offer.
That's right.
Lastly, we also address the question clients often have when they see a property like it's listed at X amount of dollars. They ask, how much should I offer? What do we typically say to that, Stacy?
Make your best offer. Whatever you can offer that is within your budget, within your affordability, make your best offer. You only sometimes get one bite at the apple. So that wraps it up for our recap of the property search from stage 2. Today we are going to cover what happens when you make that offer and you get that offer accepted. What happens, Todd?
So when you see a property you like, you tell us your agents, we write up a contract for you, we access the pre-approval that you receive from your lender, and we send that over to the listing agent, the agent who's working with the seller. Hopefully they accept that offer, they sign that contract, they send it back to us, and then we begin what's called the attorney review process. Both the contracts go out to your attorney and the seller's attorney. What happens during attorney review, Stace?
So during the AR process, that 14-page contract that the client gets that they oftentimes may not understand and may have many questions about, their attorney will then take that document, they consolidate that document into about a 1 to 3 page document that is called the addendum to the contract. That then becomes the controlling document to the transaction. And then what happens with that controlling document to the transaction, Todd?
So once this process begins, the 2 attorneys review that document independently with their clients. They begin sort of like a negotiation. Sometimes one side wants to revise or add something. It can relate to the inspection, the appraisal, the really important issues that arise during this process. So the important thing to remember is during this, it's called the attorney review stage, right? So the status of the transaction is AR, attorney review. Key thing to remember, at this point, neither party is bound by the terms of the contract or any agreement. Either party can walk away from the agreement with no harm.
So you're saying that if I'm the buyer,
Yes.
and I just decide that I no longer want the house because I saw something else on Zillow that looks much more appealing to me, I can just call my attorney and say, hey, I changed my mind.
Cancel the transaction. You can do that just that simple, one phone call. You can do that and the sellers could do that. No one's contractually bound at this time. Once the attorneys talk with their clients and they clarify what needs to be in the document, the attorneys confer and they agree on the terms, attorney review is then officially concluded. What's the status of the transaction at that point, Stacey?
That therefore makes both parties bound to the transaction and the status now becomes under contract. Both the seller and the buyer are contractually bound to the transaction. I also want to go back and add a caveat to the AR process. Just because neither the seller or the buyer are bound to the transaction does not mean that someone should just wake up and go, oh, I changed my mind. I saw something better on Zillow. I'd like to just moonwalk out the deal. And by the way, people do that.
People do. And that's why when we talk about making an offer, be very, very sure that this is the property that you want. So hopefully you won't just get up and decide I want out of it during AR. You've really thought about it before making the offer and you made the decision and you're committed to purchasing this home. Back to the under contract status. So AR, the conclusion of AR triggers a few things that are going to take place in the transaction. So your status is under contract. Both parties are contractually bound. What's the first thing that happens at that point, Stacey, for the buyer?
The buyer usually has a window with which they have to get the home inspected. So it's usually about a 10 to 14 day window, depending upon the contract, that they have to get a home inspection completed by. Right.
And so as a buyer, you have to hire a home inspector to go out and do an inspection of the property. The home inspector, clients also ask, we got a question coming in, Stacey.
Oh, yes.
Will the inspectors find all the issues or potential problems the house may have in the future?
Now, this is a really important question, and this comes up a lot.
It does.
Well, so the answer to that is no. The home inspector is probably not going to find all of the issues in a home. Probably not. It is probably not possible. Why?
So the home inspection is what's called a passive inspection, right? They really focus on the major systems of the house. They don't open walls, so they're not going to open walls and look at pipes.
Right.
They focus on the roof, the foundation, the electrical system, and the HVAC system, and to the degree they can test and inspect the plumbing systems in the house, right?
That's correct.
So that's what they really focus on. So if there's a pipe in the wall that's corroding and in 6 months is going to burst, are they going to find that?
No, they're not.
Probably not. So it's a passive inspection, but the inspection should give you some insight into the status of those major systems in the house, if anything is in really, really disrepair. It also does another thing. The home inspection is very educational. A lot of people have never owned a home before. A lot of people never lived in a home before. So they point out things to you like, here's the water meter, here's the gas meter, this is the furnace, this is the hot water heater. You'd be surprised how many times people come into a house and they look at that and they say, is that the furnace or the hot water heater? And you say, no, that's the hot water heater. It's first. And look, if you've never experienced it, then you never experienced it. So it's a very educational process, and the buyer should always attend the home inspection. So that's one thing, the home inspection, that the concluding of AR triggers. What's another thing, Stace?
So the other thing that the under contract triggers is the appraisal process. So the appraisal gets triggered, and what that is, the bank the bank that is going to be funding the buyer's mortgage contacts or contracts with an independent company that will do an assessment on the property to assess the true value of that property. That is called the appraisal process. Is there anything you would like to add to the appraisal process?
Yes, clients ask us this all the time. You don't have anything to do with the appraisal process. You're not there when it happens. One of the agents usually lets the appraiser in. You can't talk to the appraiser. And that's so that the appraiser stays objective and that he gives an objective opinion as to the value of the property. The important thing about the appraisal is the mortgage the bank will issue you is based on the appraised value of the home. Stace, sometimes clients, when we talk to clients, a house could be listed at $500,000 and the client offers $530,000 because they really want it. It's a competitive process. What's something that we recommend that they consider doing to strengthen their offer?
So one of the things that we recommend the client does to make their offer competitive in the marketplace is offer to provide a appraisal gap. What is an appraisal gap, you ask? What's an appraisal gap, Todd?
So an appraisal gap is when you as the buyer commit to the seller if the house appraises below the agreed upon asking price. Let's say, for instance, it's a $500,000 purchase. And the house does not appraise for the $500,000, but it appraises for $480,000. If you've offered a $20,000 appraisal gap, then you would be responsible for putting in that $20,000 out of pocket into the deal. If the house, it's a $500 purchase, you do a $20,000 appraisal gap, and the house appraises at $490,000. How much do you have to put out of pocket, Stace?
$10,000.
$10,000. It's a way that you can make the seller feel confident and secure in your offer. Because there are times when houses don't appraise for the value agreed upon in the purchase price. We're going to do a session on appraisals because there's a lot of controversy about that. It's going to take us a long time. We want to talk about that. So that'll be coming to you soon. But that's what an appraisal and an appraisal gap is. The next kind of thing we like to talk about is when you enter this process, when you're at this stage, you're going to have a whole cadre of professionals come into your life. At this point, you've been dealing mostly with your real estate agent, right? But once we get to this stage, who are these cadre of professionals that are going to be entering their lives directly and some indirectly?
So you're going to definitely be engaging with your attorney a lot. You're going to definitely engage with the home inspector, of course. Definitely going to be engaging with the loan officer,
contractor maybe.
And maybe a couple of other professionals depending upon the deal and who else needs to get involved. So one of the things that we encourage clients is when you are engaging with a lot of these professionals, you're going to hear a lot of industry jargon. Industry jargon is language that most people in the industry understands, right? And oftentimes clients, it's foreign language to them because they're not in this industry. And sometimes clients don't feel comfortable, or if they're afraid, or they don't want to seem incompetent to ask. We encourage them to ask. If there's anything that you do not understand, do not feel afraid. In fact, be empowered and encouraged to ask. If there's something someone is saying and you do not understand it, you stop them, right? We tell our clients if there's something that we're saying, if I speak very, very fast, slow me down, stop me and say, Stacy, I did not understand what you're saying. You said that a little too fast. Would you mind repeating that? And in fact, I will say to my client, I will repeat that for you. And I usually will say, does that make sense to you? Do you understand what I've said? Do you want me to repeat that? Or I can repeat that for you. If you need me to say it again. So we encourage our clients to ask us the same question multiple times. One of the reasons why we needed to memorialize this process is because we want our clients to have access to this information and to be able to hear it over and over again as many times as they want, to have access to the information whenever they want. And that's the purpose of us doing these videos, because we want them to be so familiar with the process, the lingo, the industry jargon, whatever you want to call it, that they almost feel like they're the professionals.
And one of the professionals, the cadre of professionals who might use a lot of industry jargon, who you're going to interact with indirectly and has a significant impact on this process, is an underwriter, right? A lot of people don't know what an underwriter is or what they do, right? So underwriters do basically two things, right? First, through looking at your financial documents and credit reports and income and all of those things, the first decision they make is, can we lend you money? Are you worthy for us to lend you money? That's the first decision, right? If they say yes to that, the second thing is, well, how much can we give you? How much can you afford to borrow, right? So the underwriter is going to be a key person working on your file, right? As it moves through the transaction. And oftentimes, you're going to be asked to submit a lot of information. Anytime an underwriter asks for additional information or clarity, it's referred to as a condition. Everyone who goes through this process gets conditions, some more than others. The key thing is to be, and this is another place where you've got to really check your email a couple times a day, because a lot of the information that they need is time sensitive. So as you resolve the conditions that are issued by the bank through the underwriter, eventually, when all conditions are resolved, what happens, Stacy? The underwriter does?
He will clear your file.
He will clear your file and issue a
clear to close
CTC. And once we get that clear to close, the attorneys, along with the buyer and seller, set a closing date. You guys show up.
Everybody's happy when you get the CTC.
And our very, very next module will be on the closing.
Woo-hoo! So thank you for staying with us. Thank you for joining us. This is Tnt'S News You Can Use. We are your hosts. I am Stacy, and this is
Todd.
And we will join you for the next one. So thanks for joining us.